If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. I post a new Tom Brady video every day.
You're talking about the greatest quarterback of all time. But my quarterback,
he's the best at what he chose to do, which was play quarterback in the most popular league in North American sports, one of the most difficult positions in North American sports. And at every stop along that way, he was the best, or talked about as the best at what he did.
At Super Bowl 51, Mina, you covered the game. What do you remember about that comeback?
Yeah. Well, okay, so I don't have stories about sacking Tom Brady or competing against him, but I did have to write about him, and I'll just tell you this. When that Dante Hightower strip sack happened in the fourth quarter, I had a whole column about the Atlanta Falcons written, and I immediately knew. Throw it out the window. And that's the feeling that Tom Brady gave you, that feeling of inevitability. You felt it in the stadium, the dread setting in amongst Falcons fans, the silence, because even though at that point they were still down several scores, everybody knew Tom Brady was going to win the football game. And it's that sense of inevitability that makes him so unique, man. Because I don't know if I've ever had a feeling like that watching any other quarterback at that.
The poster child for the Patriot Way, a term that's become synonymous with pro football and excellence at the top, a way of doing things in a standard that was difficult for others to live up to.
The best leader this league has ever seen. And I think he proved that when going from New England all the way to Tampa Bay and forming them into a championship team. His leadership style is all about relationships, and I think that's what's so unique about him, giving his teammates a genuine reason to believe in him. And that's what he does, that because he makes them feel like they're important. And that's something that really gets overlooked. There are a lot of quarterbacks that can throw a football, okay? But there aren't a lot of quarterbacks that can capture teams and say, get on my back because I'm doing the right things, and you mean a lot to me too, so let's go do this together. That's one of the special things I always thought was about Tom.
The Edelman catch, and I know we showed it, but just the ability not to care about the moment and just continue to play football. That pass should have been picked off, y'all, but it's Tom Brady. It don't happen to Tom Brady. You ain't gonna intercept it twice in the game against Tom Brady on critical plays. And obviously, Edelman made a phenomenal catch. His ability to lock in on that rock with all of the traffic. But it just goes into more and more of what we talk about with this quarterback.
Tom was obviously in the very beginning very confident, although you didn't know that. He wasn't cocky, maybe quietly, because otherwise you don't reach this.
It's the traits that I see, the face, the that courage and that composure that he has in big moments. That's what reminds me of Tom Brady. All right. However, they will never be another Tom Brady. When you look at this man, all of his accomplishments, 7 Super Bowl championships. It's just crazy. 3-time MVP, and by the way, might win another one.
It seems like it happened time and time again for Tom Brady throughout his career.
He was consistently excellent despite the way the game changed throughout his time in the NFL, and that change came in part because of teams he was on, the 2007 Patriots team that redefined offense in the NFL.
You speak to any teammate, and they refer to him as Tommy. Okay? Tommy. We know him as Tom, right?
Yeah, you always hear him introducing himself to rookies, like, hey, I'm Tom, thanks for coming on the team.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, I know who you are.
Right, and so it's amazing. He never really, the only time he ever made it about himself is when he decided to go to Tampa and say, I'm just going to do this for myself. And then has the greatest second act that you could possibly imagine because of his age. I know Peyton Manning had a second act and won a Super Bowl in Denver. I get it. But Brady leaves with having led the league in touchdowns and passing yards. I mean, at 44.
He was an underdog story that people could sell to their kids, that coaches could sell to their players. The 199th overall pick in the draft, who didn't come into this league as a heralded prospect, ended up winning 7 Super Bowls and appearing in 50% of the Super Bowls that were played since the time that he was drafted.
It just showed us that if you have Tom Brady, you have a chance. If Tom Brady was Lloyd Christmas, he would have got Mary Swanson's number. I'm convinced of it. He was that dang cold. And so anytime that he was in the building or he was in the arena, he was in the stadium, he's on your team, he's in your locker room, you felt a championship was on the way. And that's exactly what Chris Godwin and Mike Evans said when he became the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He said, we have a chance. We finally got one. And you watched him year year after year, and you always felt that whatever team he was on had a chance to be playing on Super Bowl Sunday, and if they were there, you could never count that team out. That day signified that more than any other day in Tom Brady's career to me.
Is he going to go? Like, is this really true? And I kind of thought to myself, isn't it interesting that we all looked at it about ourselves when Brady's entire career was very rarely about him? He retires as one of the greatest teammates, one of the greatest winners in a team sport. Never took the most money, right? Never took the most money. He could have made an insane amount of money, more than the insane amount of money he had earned, if he had made sure the Patriots paid him as the number one quarterback in the league every single time it was his contractual right to leverage it. And he never did.
This was the game that Tom Brady became the GOAT for me. Leading into that game, it was always Peyton Manning. I thought Peyton Manning was the best quarterback that ever played football, how he revolutionized the position, all that. And then when I sat there and watched that comeback from Brady, I was like, man, that is doing the impossible. So he's got all the individual statistics, and then truly he's the one guy that kind of, for me, does make quarterback wins matter because he did it better than and more than anybody else in the history of the game.
By the way, if you're in your 20s and you haven't seen football without Tom Brady.
I don't really remember the NFL without Tom Brady.
The Patriots were the premier dynasty of my lifetime. They were the premier dynasty of the era. They were equal parts infuriating and awe-inspiring, depending on who you rooted for.
He was Earnest at 44 playing like he was at 34, like he was at 24. I think that may be about his best attribute. Earnest to his teammates, earnest to what became his family, certainly his mom and his dad and his sisters, earnest to his coaches, and earnest to himself. Like, I can do better than this, even though we just won another Super Bowl.
As for that Super Bowl, let me just say, sitting in the stands, in attendance that day, and it was 28-3, and people are thinking it's over, the celebration's begun, Mina Kimes has begun running her column lauding the Atlanta Falcons, and then all of a sudden you could just feel, as soon as the New England Patriots made another play or two or three, I turned to the people I was watching the game with and I said, this game is over. We've seen this play before. We know how it ends. And everybody in the stadium that day could feel it coming. You knew it was coming. And it was time to sit back and watch history.
It feels like we have to just do the obligatory apology to Falcons fans who may be watching right now because it's just pain over and over and over again.
That's correct.
He was the best and era defining in that way. Tom Brady gave us something really unique even in sports talk. He went 20 years as a part of one of the greatest tandems in sports history with him and Bill Belichick, one of the most productive in terms of winning. And we constantly asked who was more important, who was more valuable to the dynasty. And he did his best to give us an answer, leaving to head down to Tampa Bay and winning a championship in his first season there, doing it a different way than we had seen his entire career, doing it more openly. There appeared to be more joy. Hell, he even looked like the best at celebrating championships after that seventh one, drunkenly throwing the Lombardi from boat to boat, stumbling off in the arms of some of his friends and teammates.
He came back, he took a team back from 24 points down. And that's why, because he's Tom Brady.
I would say, Rex, the success that you mentioned, the 7 Super Bowl championships, I mean, he set the standard for these younger quarterbacks where they believe one championship isn't enough.
Yep.
I mean, I got to keep winning because that's the standard. I mean, it isn't just one. It's like Mahomes thinking about now getting his second. But these quarterbacks, they now say multiple. The word multiple, and Tom set that standard.
And he could keep going. Like, Rex, that's what you're saying. Like, he's the passing leader this year, could be the MVP this year. You know, Tom and I became starters in the NFL at the same time. And so it's incredible, even more incredible to me to see that how he's done it at such a high level and just keeps pushing barriers and, you know, setting the bar, setting the standard so much higher.
To be consistently great at anything for that long, to be consistent at anything for that long is near impossible. But to be consistently at the top despite the way everything around you changed, teammates, the other assistant coaches on that staff, the team you were a part of at the end, it's something we will likely never see again in my lifetime, in our sports lifetime here. It was that special. It was, again, whether you love loved or hated it, something that defined this era in a way that few other things could. However you want to wrap that, however your vantage point was for it, I myself consider myself lucky to have gotten to see something like that unique.
That's it for this video. I post a new Tom Brady video every day, so please like and subscribe. That way you'll always have a new Tom Brady video to watch every single day.